The man came into the bakery on a Tuesday at 6:15 and put 85 cents on the counter and pointed at the small loaf of brown bread on the rack and said nothing else. And Anna Reese wrapped the loaf in the brown paper and slid it across the wood to him without naming the price, because the price had already been named. He had been coming on Tuesdays for 9 weeks. He always put down more than the loaf cost. The first Tuesday it had been 10 cents over. The second Tuesday it had been 15. By the 9th Tuesday it was 25 cents over. Every Tuesday, the same brown loaf, the same silent transaction, the coins set down with the careful precision of a man who had counted them out at his own kitchen table before he came in. Before we continue, if stories like this mean something to you, hit subscribe and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. Anna had not asked about it. She had let the coins lie until he was out the door each Tuesday, and then she had put the price of the loaf in the till and the rest in a small tin she kept on the shelf above the flour bin, because she had been raised by a grandmother who had told her, plainly, that money a person did not understand was money a person did not yet have the right to spend. Today, the man set down the coins and the wrapped loaf went across the counter, and he turned to leave, and Anna spoke for the first time in 9 weeks. "Mister." He stopped at the door. He turned back. He took his hat off, which was a clean brown felt hat with a fine line of pale dust along the brim, and he held it in both his weathered hands at his chest. He was 35, broad in the shoulder, lean across the chest, a steady gray eye, a sun-darkened jaw, a clean, faded blue chambray work shirt with the sleeves rolled past the elbow, dark trousers worn at the knee, scuffed brown leather work boots dusty along the toe. "You have been overpaying me," Anna said. "I know it. The bread is 60 cents. You've been putting down 85. I have, for 9 weeks. For 9 weeks." She looked at him. She was 27, lean and sun-darkened, dark hair pinned back simply with one strand loose at her temple from the heat of the oven, a faded pale blue work dress with the sleeves rolled past the elbow and a worn cream apron at her waist, white with flour at the front. She had been at this counter for 2 years and 3 months, since the death of her husband who had owned the bakery before her, and she had not lost the bakery yet, only because she had worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week through both of those years, and she had cut her own bread and butter to 2 slices a day in the second year to keep the flour bin full, and she had learned in those 2 years and 3 months a great deal about which men in this small High Plains town came into a bakery because they were hungry, and which men came in because they wanted to be seen at the counter of a young widow. The man at the door, whose name she did not yet know, had not yet been either kind of man. He had come in 9 Tuesdays in a row at 6:15 in the morning, the first customer of the day, and he had put down the coins and pointed at the loaf and not spoken her name, and he had not lingered, and he had not flirted, and he had not stayed past the wrapping of the loaf. "Mister," she said again, "I do not know your name. Asa Webb. I have the section out past the South Fork. Mr. Webb. Mrs. Reese. The bread is 60 cents. I know it. You have put down 25 cents extra every Tuesday for 9 weeks. I have. That is $2.25. It is. I have not spent any of it. It is in a tin on the shelf above the flour bin. I would like to give it back to you this morning." Asa Webb did not move from the door. "Mrs. Reese, I would rather you not." "Why?" He looked at the brim of his hat in his hands. He did not answer for one long breath. The bakery was quiet in the gray, pale blue light of the early morning. The small black iron stove ticking warm at the wall behind her, the smell of the morning loaves still in the air, the warm, pale tan dust of the main street just starting to lift in the first slant of the sun through the window. Anna kept her hands flat on the counter. She did not let her hands fidget. "I would rather you not," Asa Webb said again. "I would rather you keep it. That is not an answer to why. I know it is not. I am asking you why, Mr. Webb. I am asking you because in 2 years and 3 months I have not had a man put extra coin on this counter without a reason, and I have learned to ask the reason before I spend the coin. I am not spending your coin. I would not have asked the question if I had not been about to ask you to take it back this morning. You will tell me what the coin is for, or you will take it back. I will not have either at my counter for a 10th Tuesday." Asa Webb set the hat on the counter beside the brown paper loaf. He looked at her plain. "The note on your door," he said. "What note?" "The note that was on your door the 2nd Tuesday of August. The note that named what you owed on the bakery to the freight house at the south end of the crossroads, and what the freight house would do about the note if it was not paid by the 1st of September. Anna kept her hands flat on the counter. She did not let her face do anything. The freight house had nailed the notice to her door at 4 in the morning on the 2nd Tuesday of August. She had taken it down at 5 when she had come out to start the morning loaves. She had read it once at the door in the gray cool of the morning. She had folded it and put it inside the pocket of her cream apron, and she had gone in and started the morning loaves, and she had not yet told a person in the town about it, because the note named a sum of money she did not have, and the 1st of September was 19 days away, and she had been doing the math of the bakery in her head every night for 19 nights, and the math had not yet come out. "How do you know about the note?" she said. "Mr. Webb, how?" "I was at your door at 4:15 that morning. I came in early to be at your counter when you opened. I had been at the freight house the previous day, and had heard the freight house was going to nail a notice, and I came in early to read it before you came out, because I figured the nailing of a notice at 4 in the morning was a thing the freight house had done before to other people who could not pay, and I figured the freight house was a sort of business I had a quarrel with. I read the notice at your door. I did not take it down. I went home. I came back at 6:15 the same morning as your first customer, and I put down 25 cents extra for the loaf I had been buying on Tuesdays for the 6 Tuesdays before. I have put down 25 cents extra on every Tuesday since. I figured 9 Tuesdays at 25 cents was $2.25. I figured I would put down extra every Tuesday until the 1st of September, and that the sum I had put down would not be the sum of the notice, but would be something against it. And I figured I would put it down without asking you about it, because I figured if I asked you about it, you would not take it. That is the why of the coin. I have not yet said the why out loud, because I figured the saying out loud was the part of it that would make you give it back." He stopped. He picked his hat back up off the counter. He did not put it on yet. Anna Reese did not let her hands fidget. She looked at her hands on the counter. She looked at the small tin on the shelf above the flour bin behind her, which she had not turned to look at in the 9 weeks. She looked at the man at the door of her bakery in the gray, pale blue light of the early morning, in his clean work shirt and his dust-darkened hat and his worn boots, and she thought about her grandmother who had told her plainly that money a person did not understand was money a person did not yet have the right to spend, and she thought about the second part of what her grandmother had told her, which had been that money a person did finally understand was money a person did finally have the right to use. "Mr. Webb, yes, the $2.25 is not the sum of the notice. I know it is not. It is $41 short of the sum of the notice. I know it is. I have been doing the math of the bakery for 19 nights. The math has not yet come out. I figured it had not. She looked at him. You came to my counter for 9 Tuesdays in a row to put down 25 cents extra for a loaf because you read a notice at my door at 4 in the morning that you were not meant to read. I did. She did not speak for one long breath. She looked at her hands on the counter. She looked at the brown paper loaf wrapped on the wood between them. She looked at the gray, pale blue light of the early morning through the window, the warm dust of the main street just starting to lift in the first slant of the sun, the empty road outside her shop. She set both her chapped, sun-darkened hands flat on the counter, and she did not let her hands fidget. You will sit down at the small table at the side of the room, she said. There is coffee on the stove. I have not had a man at the small table at the side of the room in 2 years and 3 months. You will sit at it this morning, and you will drink a cup of coffee, and you will tell me what you came in to put down for the 10th Tuesday, and I will tell you, before you say it, that I will not take it. I will take the $2.25, because the $2.25 has been at the back of my shelf for 9 Tuesdays, and I have not yet found the courage to be the kind of woman who takes coin from a man for a reason she has not known. I have the courage now. I will take the $2.25. I will not take the 10th Tuesday. I will tell you the reason in plain-spoken terms when you're at the small table at the side of the room. Will you sit? I will sit. He put the hat on the worn wooden peg by the door. He came to the small wooden table at the side of the room. He sat in the worn wooden chair on the side of the table away from the counter, in the way a man sits at a table in a woman's shop when he knows he is the second person to sit in the chair in 2 years and 3 months, and he does not wish to be the third person whose sitting has been a thing she regrets. Anna poured a cup of coffee from the small black tin pot on the stove. She set the cup at his right hand. She poured a second cup. She did not sit down yet. She stood at the counter with her cup in her hand, and she looked at him at the small table at the side of her shop. Mr. Webb. Yes. The reason I will not take the 10th Tuesday is that I have a freight wagon coming down from the north on the Thursday at noon that I have been trying to settle a thing with for 19 nights, and on the Thursday afternoon, in the second slant of the sun, I will know whether the freight wagon has settled the thing or has not, and I will not borrow against your coin until I know. The 10th Tuesday is 2 days before the freight wagon. I will not take coin from you on a Tuesday, and have you wait until a Thursday to know whether I have used it well. I am not that kind of woman. The $2.25 I will take because it has been at the back of my shelf for 9 Tuesdays, and I have not spent it. I am not refusing the help, Mr. Webb. I am refusing the timing of the help. If, on the Thursday afternoon, the freight wagon has not settled the thing, I will come to the section out past the South Fork on the Friday morning, and I will ask you, in plain-spoken terms at your own porch, what you would have me do, and you will name what you would have me do, and we will write the agreement on paper, and I will sign it, and you will sign it, and you will keep the paper. That is the plan. I am asking you to wait until the Friday. She stopped. She set her cup on the counter. She looked at him. Asa Webb did not let his face do anything. He picked up his coffee. He drank a slow, careful swallow. He set the cup down. He looked at his hands on the table. That suits, he said. Friday morning, I will be at the section. She nodded once. She came around the counter at last. She sat in the chair on the side of the table closest to the counter. She set her coffee in front of her. She picked up the cup, and she drank a slow, careful swallow of her own. Mr. Webb. Yes. I have one more question. Ask it. You said the freight house was a sort of business you had a quarrel with. I did. What was the quarrel? He thought about it. My father had a section south of here 20 years ago. The freight house at the crossroads sent a notice to his door at 4 in the morning on the 14th of October of that year over a freight bill he could not pay. He could not pay it because the harvest had come in light and the bill had come in heavy. The freight house took the section in the second week of November. My father moved my mother and me into a back room of my uncle's section north of here. He died of the worry of it the following spring. He had been 41. The freight house at the crossroads is the same freight house. The man who owns it now is the son of the man who owned it then. I have not had a quarrel with him in plain-spoken terms in 20 years, because I had not yet been in a position to. I figured I was in a position to this August. I figured your notice at 4 in the morning was the position I had been waiting for. That is the quarrel. There is not a longer one. He stopped. I do not say it for the credit, Mrs. Reese. I say it because you asked. Anna Reese looked at her cup. She did not let her face do anything. She thought about her grandmother, who had been a woman of a kind that had not been kind. She thought about her husband, who had been a kind man, and who had died of a fever in his 32nd year. She thought about the 2 years and 3 months she had stood at the counter of his bakery alone, with her hands in flour and her back to the bell of the door, and her face composed and her tin behind the flour bin filling. Slowly, one strange, unexplained coin at a time. She thought about the morning of the second Tuesday of August at 4 in the gray cool when the freight house had nailed the notice and had left. And she thought about a man she did not know standing at her door at 4:15 reading a notice he was not meant to read, and going home and coming back at 6:15 and putting 25 cents extra on the wood for 9 Tuesdays in a row, in the silence of a man who had been waiting 20 years to do plain something he had not been in a position to do. She picked up her cup. She drank a slow, careful swallow. "Friday morning," she said. "Friday morning," he said. "The freight wagon came down from the north on the Thursday at noon." The freight wagon did not settle the thing. Anna Reese stood at her counter at 1 in the afternoon, and she did the math of the bakery one more time in her head, and the math did not come out. She closed the shop at 5. She walked back through the warm, pale-tan dust of the main street in the warm gold of the late afternoon to the small back room behind the bakery where she lived alone. She did not sleep past 3. She came out at 4 in the gray cool of the Friday morning. She put on her clean Friday traveling shawl. She walked out to the small worn corral at the back of the bakery yard where she kept the one steady brown buggy mare she still had, and she hitched the mare to the small worn black buggy. And she drove out on the south road at 4:30, in plain sight of the road, in the warm gold of the early morning, the cottonwoods at the lane just starting to gold at the tips. The section, out past the South Fork, was a plain, low pine plank ranch house with a small porch, a fenced corral with a steady dark bay horse in it, and a kitchen garden along the south wall that had been kept up. Asa Webb was at the porch step when the buggy came up the lane. He had been waiting since 4. He came down the path. She did not climb down yet. Mr. Webb, Mrs. Reese. The freight wagon did not settle the thing. He nodded once. "I have come to ask you, in plain spoken terms at your own porch, what you would have me do." He looked at her on the buggy seat. He had a folded paper in his hand at his side. He held it up. "I have done the math too, Mrs. Reese. I have done it since the second Tuesday of August. The sum of the notice on your door is $43.20. I have $45 in a tin at the back of the shelf above my own kitchen block, which is the money my father left in a tin at the back of his shelf the night before he died, and which I have not spent in 20 years. I would have you take it and pay the freight house at the crossroads on Monday morning and bring me the paper of the receipt that afternoon. And I would have us sign an agreement at this porch this morning that you will pay me back at the rate of 50 cents a week for the next 20 months, without interest, without any other thing being asked, until the $45 has come back to this tin at the back of this shelf. That is the agreement. I have written it on the paper. You will read it. You will sign it if it suits you. You will not sign it if it does not. He held out the paper. Anna Reese climbed down from the buggy. She took the paper. She read it. The paper was written in his own careful hand. The paper named the sum, the rate, the term, and the terms of repayment. The paper did not name the freight house. The paper did not name his father. The paper did not name anything that did not need to be named. She refolded the paper. She looked at him. "I will sign it," she said. "I will sign it on one condition." "What condition?" "That on the Friday morning of every fourth week, when I bring you the 50 cents for that month, you will come down at 6 on the Tuesday after to the bakery and put down 85 cents on the counter for a loaf of brown bread, the same as you have put down for 9 weeks. The bread will be 60 cents, and the 25 cents will be the interest on the loan, which the paper says is without interest, which is a lie the paper tells. You will pay the 25 cents in coin at the counter at 6:15 on the Tuesday after every fourth Friday for the next 20 months. That is the condition. I am not refusing the help. I'm refusing the dignity of a help that asks for nothing. You will let me give back the 25 cents in the only currency I have, which is bread." He looked at her. "That suits," he said. She signed the paper. He signed the paper. She took the paper. He took the tin from the shelf above his kitchen block and counted out $43.20 on the worn wooden block at the side of the porch, and she counted it after him in her own hand, and she folded the coin into the small worn leather purse at her belt, and the remaining $1.80 of the 45 he put back in the tin and back on the shelf above the block. She drove back to town on the south road in the warm gold of the early morning. She paid the freight house on the Monday morning. She brought the receipt to the section on the Monday afternoon at 4. He read it at the gate without dismounting from where he had been mending a rail at the corral, and he nodded once, and he set the receipt in the pocket of his work shirt, and he went back to the rail. He came down at 6:15 on the Tuesday after. He put down 85 cents on the counter. He pointed at the small loaf of brown bread on the rack. Anna Reese wrapped the loaf in brown paper and slid it across the wood to him, and he took the loaf, and he put his hat on, and he went out. That was the 10th Tuesday. The slow geographical shift was in the chair at the small table at the side of the room. Asa Webb came down at 6:15 on every Tuesday for the next 20 months, and on the Tuesday after every fourth Friday, he put down the 25 cents of interest on the loan that did not name interest, and on the Tuesdays between, he put down 60 cents for the loaf, and Anna Reese wrapped the loaf in brown paper and slid it across the wood. By the second month, he was sitting at the small table at the side of the room for a cup of coffee at 6:15 before he took the loaf and rode back out to the section. By the fourth month, the cup of coffee at his right hand had moved over the weeks from the side of the small table away from the counter to the side closest to the counter. By the sixth month, Anna Reese had stopped going around the counter to pour his coffee and was sitting at the chair on the side closest to the counter when he came in. By the 9th month, the loaf was already wrapped and on the small table when he sat down. By the 12th month, the chair on the side away from the counter, which had been the chair he had sat in on the first morning, had been moved by Anna Reese herself a few inches at a time, over the weeks, in the way that pattern moved in that country, until the chair was beside her chair and not across from it. He asked her the next question at the small table on the Tuesday morning of the 20th month, the morning of the last 50-cent payment, in plain-spoken terms, with his hat on the peg and his coffee at his right hand, and the loaf wrapped on the table between them. She answered plain. They were married at the small white-painted clapboard chapel at the crossroads on a clear, cool Sunday afternoon in late October, with the cottonwoods at the lane all the way gold. The bakery stayed Anna's. The section stayed Ace's. The loaf on Tuesdays at 6:15 stayed 60 cents because she would not raise it on him, and the 25 cents of interest on the loan that had not named interest stayed paid out in bread on the Tuesday after every fourth Friday until the loan was paid. And then it stayed paid out in bread for the rest of the dry years that came in that country, and there were several of them. The tin on the shelf above the flour bin stayed on the shelf. The tin on the shelf above the kitchen block at the section stayed on the shelf, too. This was the story of Anna Reese and Asa Webb, the widow who would not spend coin she did not understand, and the man who had been waiting 20 years to put it down at her counter. Tell me in the comments if you enjoyed this one. We are always glad you came to listen.